Hi guys, happy Tuesday. Hope everyone is well and healthy. Today's video is going to be sort of a condensed version of everything that you need to know that has taken place in the month of March and all the strategies that I think that you should be implementing. So let's kind of consider it sort of a Q1 update. But I'm going to begin with the most interesting piece of industry news that I came across this morning, and that is what Airbnb is doing for its host. Airbnb announced that it put together a $250 million fund to pay out to its host for all the cancellations that they experienced due to the pandemic that we are currently going through. So I think that that is an amazing initiative that Airbnb took. They're also doing quite a few things that says, and this I'm citing a Reuters.com article that they posted this morning. Airbnb also said it's creating a $10 million relief fund for its superhosts, so named for meeting certain requirements, including good ratings, who rent out their own home and need help paying their rent or mortgage, and some experienced hosts who charge for sharing an experience like food tours. So on top of the $250 million, they're allocating $10 million to their superhosts, which is kind of equivalent to our all-star hosts who really help them with their cost of doing business. So all really, really interesting stuff. It says here, hosts can apply for grants for up to $5,000. That fund started with Airbnb employee donations of $1 million, and the company's 3 founders are personally contributing the rest, it said. Airbnb also said it worked to secure support for hosts in the recent U.S. stimulus bill that will allow some hosts to benefit from small business grants, loans, and unemployment assistance. So some really great initiative finally taken by Airbnb for its hosts. And I think that definitely for the Airbnb community out there, this has to be a sense of relief for them to know that their platform is backing them and finally has a solution that really impacts them directly and financially, which is of course the biggest thing. And as we know here in the Turo community, in March we have experienced mass cancellations. Those cancellations have dipped in over into April. A lot of you out there have had all of your April bookings canceled. I've also seen cancellations all the way into May. So this is definitely widespread and it's definitely affecting us as hosts. And will Turo offer up a solution like this? I don't know. It's possible. Personally, I don't think so, but I hope that they do. I hope that they follow a great example like this and help their hosts in that same type of way. Now, I do know that Airbnb made some major efforts with their lobbyists to make sure that Airbnb was named within the stimulus bill. I do not know if Turo was successful at doing that or not, but that's kind of what I've come across in terms of information. And I will post a link to this article in the description down below because it is definitely an excellent read. So we can hope for the best from Turo and hopefully they'll provide some solution for their hosts as well. Okay, so I want to get into mindset and focus. So personally, what I can share with you guys is 100% of my focus is kind of going towards 2 things during this time. Number 1 is minimizing any financial risk that I have. And I've talked about this before. I've done that in a number of ways, which the strategies I'm going to go through right after this. So minimizing financial risk and planting seeds for financial growth. So every single day I'm thinking about what can I do? What seeds can I plant today? What seeds can I plant tomorrow that can turn into something later on that will result in increased revenue, financial growth, and more money in my pocket. So those are my 2 sole focuses every single day. That is what I think about, and all the actions that I take are to really fuel those 2 focus points. So one of the videos that I put out a couple of weeks ago, or 2 videos I should say, is what can you do if you can't make your car payments, and 2, saving your Turo business, the strategies that you should take into effect. So let's begin with the first strategy that I spoke about, and that was just really sprucing up your listing. So you want to make sure that your listing is top notch. Of course, you know that photos are that first point of sale, so you want to make sure your photos look good. And in your descriptions, now more than ever, I see a lot of descriptions that are really just bare bones and very minimal. Now more than ever, you really want to communicate to your potential guests and let them know that your cars are clean, that they're safe to drive, and that they can rest assured that the utmost care is being taken with your vehicle, and that they can rest assured that it's going to be clean and ready to go for them. Number two, and this is a really important one, which is pricing. So when I talked about this a couple weeks ago, I knew then, and we could see it through the market, that the buyers, right, our renters, were already becoming price sensitive, right? Everybody right now is price sensitive because we are in such uncertain time. People have uncertainty with their jobs. People are getting furloughed. They're getting laid off. People are being guaranteed 2 weeks of pay, and beyond that, things are unsure if they will continue to get paid. So there's just a lot of ifs out there, and we do not know how this is going to pan out. So people are very price sensitive. And what you want to do when you're considering pricing is really learn from people who are in the travel industry, right? You can spot these trends anywhere. You can go on Google Flights, you can go on Kayak, and you can see how the airline industry is pricing out. You can see how hotels are pricing out, and you can literally look months down the line and see how they're pricing out. And you know, you have to know that they have a lot of resources that they put behind their pricing strategies. So that's an indication of how things are going to move and what their projections look like. And we need to follow that same trend. That's if you're still trying to get bookings for your cars, which for me, I am, because like I said, one of my main focuses is to minimize financial risk. I want to cover my expenses. Sure, I can sit back, I can snooze all my listings and just not have to deal with this. I can use my savings, I can defer out payments, and I can just chill. But that's not me. That's not what I want to do. I want to get my cars out. I want to bring in as much money as I can to offset my expenses, because why dip into savings and why dip into deferments if I can kind of continue to push that out? Because right now we don't know how long this is going to last. We can all say 30 or 60 days, or by the end of May, we're going to kind of get back into it and the markets are going to pick up. But we just don't know what position our buyers are going to be in. So I want to save my contingency plans and my resources for when I really need them. And let's hope that we don't even get to that position. So I want to bring in revenue while I can. Okay, now another really important point about pricing that I mentioned a couple weeks ago is right now our buyers are buying differently, right? We all know that on Turo, usually the average rentals are like 2 to 3 days in a normal market, in a normal economy. But right now, that is not the case. That is not how people are buying. People are looking in a different time frame. They're looking at a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time. And that also comes from what's going on in the news, right? We're hearing things like 14-day quarantine, 21-day stay-at-home order. We're looking at things like, you know, an April 30th deadline, a possible June 1st reopening of the economy. So you really have to listen for these indicators, because these seeds are being planted in people's heads. And so when they think about time frames, they're thinking in that sense, right? And it's the same thing with like grocery shopping. For me personally, I could say when I go grocery shopping, I try to buy a week to 2 weeks worth of stuff at a time so that I don't have to go out for more stuff, right? So I'm thinking in weekly terms, and that is how people are renting. I highly encourage you to follow my Instagram account at Saimah's Experience, or check out my community wall here on YouTube, because I've been posting on a weekly basis screenshots of what my bookings have looked like. And honestly, I cannot make this up. Go look at my bookings and you will see all my renters unanimously, unless they are renting the Polaris or the Vanderhall, they are renting for weeks at a time. Extensions are coming in for weeks at a time. People aren't extending for a day or 2 days, they're extending for weeks. And so that is how I know that this is what the market is, and that is how they're buying. So you want to make sure that you are priced out accordingly. Now, just a couple of days ago is when I noticed people starting to drop prices. These prices should have been dropped weeks ago, right? Because you're missing out on buyers. So it's good that we're starting to see the prices come down, because that's the only place where you have buyers. So you really want to pay attention to your pricing and how you're pricing things out, and do it on a weekly basis is what my suggestion would be. Then other indicators that you want to look at, for example, pay attention to the news and pay attention to certain things that are going on. For example, in Las Vegas, right? I got an email from the Wynn Hotel saying that they're starting to take bookings April 17th onwards. So what does that tell us? That tells us that they're planning on firing up these businesses again come mid-April. So that could mean, if you're in the Vegas market, that you guys might see an uptick in demand come mid-April. And what I did when I saw this email come through is right away I went and I looked at the booking calendars for these hotels. I looked at how they're priced out and how they're priced out for the upcoming months. April, they're priced out very low. I mean, I've never seen prices like this in Vegas, and especially for 5-star hotels like the Wynn. And then from there, they sort of gradually increase in price. So it'll be really interesting to see what their pricing strategies look like. And if I was in the Vegas market, I would be watching how my hotels are priced out, because that'll tell you a lot about your market. Okay. And then from there going on, I talked about doing contactless check-ins and checkouts. You just want to make sure people are uploading a copy of their ID, that you're providing them with all the information that they need so that they can have a seamless experience and not have to worry about having human interaction. And it's just for the safety of everybody. And that's what I've been doing. And so far, knock on wood, everything has been pretty seamless and people have been great. All of my bookings across the board have been repeat renters. Whether they are repeat renters of mine or of the platform, those are the people who have been renting, and they have been 100% local. And I am very... I'm practicing, I'm being very conservative when I look at the people who are renting my cars. Because my cars are priced so low and I want to minimize my risk, I want to make sure anybody that is renting my car, they are repeat renters. If I feel that somebody even just slightly, even in the slightest way, sounds a little fishy or a little iffy, I'm not taking that booking, right? I'm going to cancel that right away, because I'm not taking on any additional rate or risk when my prices are already priced so low. So you want to make sure that you kind of are thorough in vetting your renters and make sure everything sounds good and that their reviews are good and things like that. Don't be renting to anybody right now who sounds a little fishy or doesn't have good ratings. Not worth the risk. And then I also mentioned that I did up my insurance coverage on all of my vehicles, again, to minimize my risk. So right now I'm currently on the standard coverage, because I don't want to be responsible for that deductible, that $3,000 deductible that you have on basic insurance. Now, when things normalize, I am definitely going to switch back to basic, because for me financially, it makes more sense to be on basic and pay that deductible out of pocket than to be on standard and pay the extra percentage in reservation. So right now, because I'm priced low, I want to make sure I increase my insurance and lower my risk. And moving on, the next thing I talked about was really being in sales mode. So I talked about doing things like reaching out to all your past renters. I want to say it's been 2 weeks now. I had to tediously go through all my past reservations, and I did a search by area code so that I can capture all my local renters. And I did sort of a text message campaign, sent them links to my profile, let them know what pricing deals that I have to hopefully capture some bookings through there. And that was pretty successful for me as well. So just really making sure that you're being vigilant. Anytime I have a rental that is due to end 24 hours in advance, I am messaging these people, letting them know if the car is available for extension. And I would say 9 out of 10 times right now in this climate, people are extending. And plus the deals are so good that how could you not? And finally, moving on to some more recent news and changes, let's talk about deferment. So, a lot of you guys have messaged me letting me know that you have taken advantage of the deferments that are available. And I want to correct something that I talked about in my last video because things have changed since then. So, the great thing right now that the banking and financing industry is doing is that they're being very gracious about the deferments that they're offering. You can easily defer anywhere between 30 to 90 days. If your bank is offering, say, 60 and you really think you're 90, just ask because they have been very helpful. And it's not only deferments on car payments, you can get almost anything deferred right now. You can get rents deferred, mortgages deferred, credit card payments deferred, any expenses you have, you can get it deferred. Now, personally, I am of the opinion that if you can afford to pay it, you should pay it. Don't defer out just to defer out, but because you have to think that it's a domino effect, right? If everyone doesn't pay our banks, then our banks can't lend out more money, they can't help more people. So there's layers to all of this. So if you can pay, you should pay because you want to keep those people in business, and those people who do get that money, they want to keep the people in business who they work with. So it's a whole, domino effect. And a great example of that is if you're renting, right? If you're a renter and you can afford to pay your rent, you want to pay your landlord because the landlord wants to pay its bank that it's financing from. So you just want to make sure that you're supporting the businesses that you can. But if you really can't do it, then we have some great deferment options. All you have to do is call your bank. And as far as I know, every single bank is offering this. Now, one of the things that I mentioned in my last video is that it did not apply to leases, but that has changed given the circumstances that we're in. So even if you have a lease, you can get leases deferred as well. And finally, the video that I posted yesterday is your options with the SBA. As we know, a $2.2 trillion stimulus package has been passed. I believe that there are going to be multiple phases to this package, and I think that there's going to even be more funding that becomes available. So go on to SBA.gov. They actually just updated everything yesterday. It's all really straightforward. I will put links to these past videos where I went into detail with all of this in my description down below. So if you need more detailed information on how to apply for the SBA loan, you can look at that. But they are doing a 10K advance, and it looks like they're moving on that rather quickly. Also, you can get in touch with your banks. Many banks are preferred SBA lenders. I know my bank is. I bank with Bank of California. So if you really want to apply for larger loans, they can help you throughout that process because it can be very confusing. And so that's sort of a condensed version of the strategies that I'm implementing. What I can say, since we're on the last day of March, is that in the month of March, I was able to cover 100% of my expenses, my cost of doing business on Turo with the rentals that I got. I mean, I'm literally taking pennies on the dollar for my cars, but as long as I'm able to cover my costs, that's my only focus. Is I just want to minimize any financial risk. So get those cars out there. There are people in your local community. In some communities, it's harder than others, but you have to really make the effort to reach out to locals, reach out to local businesses that you think, where people might need transportation. And there's just so many things. You just have to be resourceful and put the time and the effort into doing those things. But on that note, another thing that I'm thinking about is this situation is going to play out differently for a lot of different areas. For example, today in the news, they talked about how in California, they think the cases are really going to peak towards the end of April. So that means over the next month, things can kind of progressively get worse, and that can have a negative impact on the business. And then after the peak, it's going to start kind of coming down in terms of cases, which means people might ease up a little bit more. So that's all going to affect the way that we do business. And that's why I talked about, why it's really important that when you are paying attention to the news, that you really pay attention to what the sources are. There's a lot of information being circulated right now. It's being pushed in real time, and not all of it is very accurate. I personally like to watch the live White House briefings, and I try to use that as a gauge on where things are trending and how things are moving. There's a few other news sources I follow, like the Morning Brew, which is incredibly helpful. Today's Morning Brew was put together by the Motley Fool, which is really cool to kind of get the market aspect of it. So just really pay attention to where you're getting your information from and watch out for these indicators, and it'll really help you gauge where the markets are going. And on that note, that is a wrap up of this video. Two reminders. One is that Turo's Summit is going to take place on Thursday at 9 a.m., April 2nd, which I will have the opportunity to take part in. And so Thursday evening, I will release a video with any updates that I can share with you guys. Tomorrow, I will be posting a video on the summit agenda and kind of what my projections and anticipations are for the summit. So stay tuned for that as well. And other than that, that is it. Thanks again for watching, guys. My name is Saimah. This is Saimah's Experience. If you like this channel, please be sure to subscribe, show your support, send me your questions and comments. As always, let's build this community together. And again, we are each other's help during this time. And on that note, stay healthy, stay safe, take care of yourselves. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.